Alzamend Neuro is a company I founded while watching a TV program with my daughter on CNN. I was watching Sanjay Gupta talk about cannabis and Alzheimer's, and saw a doctor on TV, and I called them on the phone at USF and said, hey, I founded Patient Safety. It sold for $120 million to Stryker. I want to do something for Alzheimer's. I had read an article that basically everyone was failing. There were no new trials. No one was making any progress. And multiple years ago, I don't know when it was, Gary, I founded the company, called them up on the phone, begged Phil Mansour to fly to University of South Florida with me, got a licensing deal. This is an interesting biotech. It has a lotto ticket immunotherapy vaccine that is, if approved, would be world-changing. And then it has a compound with 4 compounds that are already approved that we expect to be the market relatively quickly in the biotech space for a low cost of entry that has really meaningful results. DPW Holdings has a small, almost non-disclosable investment. It's not a lot. It's meaningful in terms of me that I like it, but it's harder to make investments into related party stuff because the independent board and various governance issues make it more difficult. We do expect to, when the time is right, increase our position. We asked them to come speak because we think it's a product that'll change people's lives in the Alzheimer's space. And it's really a compelling story. We do think it becomes meaningful to DPW later this year. It is something that I think all of the people online and the people here in this room are affected by Alzheimer's. My father has it. My wife's mother died from it. My grandparents died from it. Their parents died from it. All my father's brothers and sisters have it. It affects a lot of people. It's a big killer of people. Towards the later part in life, it's extremely expensive, and this is a really important topic. And so with that in mind, Stefan Jackman, we got a chance to hire him as CEO recently. Stefan spent a lot of time at Novartis, and I'm very pleased to introduce Stefan Jackman.
Thanks, Todd. Hello, everyone. I'm here to talk to you about Alzheimer's. Everyone in the room, can I see a show of hands who have a family member or know of anyone who's affected by Alzheimer's? So that's about 80% of the people. So thank you very much. Our mission in Alzamend is just working to make Alzheimer's a memory. As Todd mentioned before, he founded the company in 2016. As he mentioned before, is that his family is affected by it, in addition to the current staff as well as the board members. When he founded the company, Phil Mansour, who's currently a member of the board of director, was filling double duty. He's an MTIX CEO as well as Alzamend. Now he's transferred back to MTIX and the board of director. We have Will Horn, who is also the CFO of Alzamend as well, and he's currently back to the board of director, and of course, Milton Toddold. You have myself. We hired Kent Cragen about a month ago, and Gary Gottlieb has been here from day one. He's director of business development. Next. So since I've started about 3 months ago, we kind of take the initiative of building a foundation for the organization. We've partnered and recruited a scientific advisory board, and it's going to start to grow. Right now we have 2 members. We recruited Dr. Thomas Wisniewski out of Langone, Pearl Bartler Center of Memory Evaluation and Treatment. As you can see, he's a key influence leader and a scientific, pretty much expert within the field of Alzheimer's. He has a little bit over 19 patents and way over 300 peer-reviewed articles. We've also recruited Dr. Yoon Fan who's worked at the FDA and is very familiar with the regulatory process and procedures to take this drug to market. Well, actually, 2 drugs to market. So our scientists and inventors are out of USF, Bird's Alzheimer Institute. We have Dr. Chow, we have Dr. Tan, and Dr. Scheidel. Our strategic partners, as you know, within a biotech firm, you don't want to be staff heavy. You know, the most important thing is that we're focusing on the development of the technology, development of the drug, and taking it to market. And so it's a massive undertaking, and it's extremely expensive. So we partnered with a CRO, TAMNet, and within TAMNet we have our pharmacologists, immunologists, toxicologists, and regulatory specialists, as you can see from the list here. Our approach is to really commercialize both therapy. As you know, as we mentioned before, many of our staff and board of directors are afflicted by Alzheimer's disease. So the last thing we want to do is turn this over to a major pharmaceutical company who may potentially shelf this drug. So we really do want to commercialize this. So our steps and processes moving forward is to make sure that we are patient-centric, that we do bring these therapeutic drugs to market to make sure that the 5.7 million people affected by it receive the treatment they so duly needed. Alzheimer's, as mentioned before, it's the 6th leading cause of death in the United States, affecting a little bit over 5.7 million people, and there's currently no therapeutic cure to Alzheimer's. However, there are 4 drugs on the market that manage symptoms. The last one being approved by the FDA in 2004. Next. The economic impact of Alzheimer's. It's a little bit over $277 billion, which is catastrophic when you think about it. If you're diagnosed with Alzheimer's, you can wither away for about 20 years. And that cost of the caregiving that your family, that yourself is affected, is astronomical. Current landscape of Alzheimer's. It's about 99 drugs in the pipeline. According to the World Health Organization, according to the FDA. Current clinical trials, if you go to clinicaltrials.gov, there's about 99 drugs in the pipeline. The first drug that will possibly or potentially hit the market and be commercialized is in 2023. Alzamend's 2 therapeutic, in particular Libracel, which we'll get to, has a potential of hitting the market way before that, potentially 2021, 2022. Now we get to the good part. We have 2 drugs. We have Libracel, which is a lithium co-crystal technology, which is a lot of fun. It's great about this drug. So it's lithium, salicylate, and proline. When we talk about the science, I'm very excited about it because, as you know, lithium has been approved by the FDA as a mood stabilizer for bipolar disorder. However, it's utilized off-label for all psychiatric, pretty much, diseases. It's utilized for suicidality, bipolar, depression, and PTSD. Patient population, 40 million. Our lithium co-crystal technology is lithium, proline, and salicylate. Basically, it's 2 amino acids that combines to lithium. It renders it non-toxic. If you are on the current lithium regimen, which is approved by the FDA, it requires a lot of blood monitoring. So on a weekly basis, monthly basis, you have to monitor your blood and get on or get off of the therapeutic based on the toxic nature. You don't want to die from it, of course. What happens with our current Libracel technology, because it is 3 compounds, lithium, salicylate, and proline, it's 2 amino acids that pretty much renders it safe, non-toxic. And combined, then we co-crystallize the technology. And in co-crystallizing the technology, what it allows you to do is prescribe low dosage, but it has a greater bioavailability, basically a greater therapeutic index. So you can prescribe a lower dose, but you get a higher value for it. Concerning that, we have, so our process and the strength of that drug in particular, all 3 APIs are already approved by the FDA, which means we qualify for a 505(b)(2) regulatory pathway. What that means to us is that we get to skip a lot of steps that have already been conducted, which is even better for us. So where we are in that process is that we're getting ready. We're putting together our pre-IND package to meet with the FDA in the 3rd quarter of this year, followed by our IND. And meeting with the FDA, they may say, okay, you do a phase 1, 3 to 6 months. Depending on the results from the phase 1 testing, they can either take us into a 2A, B, or a combined phase 2 and 3 within the FDA, within human clinical trials. The results of that will allow us to also enter the market within 18 to 36 months, which is even better for us. The most important thing about this drug that I think is very exciting for us is that once it is in a patient, what we're going after, the indication is neurodegenerative disorders, Alzheimer's. Once it is tested and it's proven for neurodegenerative disorders, it can also be prescribed off-label for a psychiatric disorder when we talk about suicidality, PTSD, depression. So it really lifts that patient population for Libracel from 6 million to about 40, 46 million patient population. It can be the go-to drug. This is something that can revolutionize the lithium therapeutic market, period. So this can be the replacement, the gold standard of all lithium that's currently on the market, in addition to for Alzheimer's. Our next drug is a mutant peptide. It's a vaccine, dendritic cell vaccine that's developed by Dr. Chow out of the USF as well. What that drug entails is that you inject into the hippocampus and you stimulate the immune system. Basically what you're doing is, as you get older, your immune system, of course, weakens. So you're regenerating, you're rejuvenating, you're bringing it up to date. So you inject into the hippocampus the vaccine, and what it does, it activates your white blood cells. But we also combine the mutant peptides that we combine with it, turns off your T cells. What happened with Elon's study is that when your T cells activated with your white blood cells, it created hydrocephalus, water in the brain, and patients died from it. That's not the case in our vaccine. What we've observed in the mouse models in preclinical is that 4 months later, after 2 inoculations, not only did it restore the cognitive abilities, it also cleared up the beta amyloid within the brain, which is the plaque buildup associated with Alzheimer's disease. Where we are in the process of that is that currently we're finishing out with Charles River Laboratories our preclinical trials in mouse. We're doing our tox studies, and that will be finished in May. Shortly thereafter, we're gonna meet with the FDA for our pre-IND, and then the IND, of course. So Q3, we should be filing our IND. Q4, we should be in human clinical trials. So both drugs this year will be in human clinical trials for us. Our process, or our next step after that, is to uplist in the New York Stock Exchange and go public. Something that you can definitely follow us into our data room or online. We talk about the technology in depth, the science, and the results that we've seen in preclinical, and the reason why we believe that we do have 2 home runs. One being for agitation, stop Alzheimer's in its tracks, but also clearing up the beta amyloid, and another one, vaccine, which can also not only be a cure for Alzheimer's, but a prophylactic. Keep going. Keep going. Timeline. as we mentioned, it usually takes about 9 to 12 years to get a drug through the FDA. For us, we have Libracel, and both of our therapeutic can be fast-tracked. So when we talk about Libracel, it pretty much truncates the time. If we look and see where we are here with the red, we're getting ready to enter the clinic, our phase 1 this year. Phase 2 and 3, it can be on the market as early as 2021, 22. The last color on the slide here depicts it takes the FDA about a year to review your NDA when you do submit it. However, when you do partner with the FDA and you do have a fast-track status or breakthrough status, they will be a little bit more apt and pretty much become a consultant with you. What happened with both drugs, because Alzheimer's is an unmet need, there's really a heightened sensitivity to get something on the market as soon as possible, since, as mentioned before, the last drug that was approved for Alzheimer's was 2004. Budget estimates. Of course, when we always talking drug development, we have to remember that it is a massive undertaking. It is going to be expensive. But concerning our process forward and what we've done in terms of fundraising, we're going to get there and we're going to make it. Of course, the investments with the DPW and other entities that we're currently working with, we are going to be able to finance and fund and raise the funds necessary to take both drugs to market. Our first focus, of course, being Libracel, and then Child 22W. Let's get to the next slide. Let's get to the next one. So currently, the current therapeutic landscape, when you think about it, we have 4 drugs that's currently on the market. At the height, when the drugs were first approved by the FDA, as you can see per year, they make on average $3 to $4 billion. The cost per year per patient goes anywhere from $3,000 to $4,400. And the total revenues you can see from these drugs in 2017 is in the hundreds of millions. 2017 because, as you can see, these drugs are already in the generic form, of course. They're no longer the brand. So there is definitely room for improvement, and the market is definitely calling for the next big therapeutic drug for Alzheimer's. If we go to the next slide. When we talk about the commercial market evaluation, we have a patient population of 6 million. Even if Alzamend was to say, okay, fine, we're going to do a cost of $3,000 per patient per year at a 10% market cap, we're going to average, and this is just for one therapeutic, not for both, an average of 1.8 billion return on investment. So when you think about the cost to get both drugs to market, if you separate them out, it'll be about 75 million per drug, but the return on investment per drug would be an average of, at the very least, $1.8 billion. So the capital raise thus far, we will be filing within the next few weeks a Reg A to raise up to $50 million for the organization, so we can definitely use that funds to supply and get our drugs through the clinical trials. And this talks a little bit more about the Regulation A processes. And our strategic partners are listed here. We have Tamnet, we have Lonza. I don't know if anyone's really familiar with most of the strategic partners, unless you're really in the space. So, with that, I guess I'm going to end the presentation right now. And if you have any more questions, please look us up.
Excellent. I think the most important part about the presentation is to understand that unmet need in Alzheimer's is going to be a big deal. Libracel has some other characteristics for Alzheimer's, which we'll talk about at another time. It's kind of a little bit of a Trojan horse for us. So I really think we'll be one of the unique biotechs that'll be to market with one of our drugs a lot quicker than most people. We have a very unique relationship with the University of South Florida. It's very supportive. We met Stefan through TAMNet, and I think it's a unicorn for us. I think that this the Alzamend investment ends up being a big opportunity for everybody involved.